morning, Instagram. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, Facebook. It is Thursday morning. It is 9:30 a.m. Cotton Cuts time. It is time for our regular weekly live show. Our first question today, I got to turn the page. Hold on. Our first question today comes to us from Patrice Lemieux in Quebec City, Quebec. Bonjour, Patrice. Thank you so much for your question. Patrice asks, do you think there's too much pressure in the quilting community to use only high-end fabric? Or is the fabric quality something that genuinely matters to the final product? And so, for this question, this is an interesting question because this is something as a quilt shop owner, as a website owner, this is something I think about a lot, right? And I see lots of different things happening in the market. I feel like if we lived our lives totally on social media, everyone would want the greatest, latest, best, newest release fashion fabric in order to make their projects. And that is a treadmill that is very hard to sustain. You guys, the people that are putting out these quilts with all the latest and greatest collections and finishing a quilt a week are living on a different pace of life than I am. And I get that there is you want the latest, you want the greatest, you want the newest, and you want it now. But at the same time, like, fabric is still beautiful. As long as you're buying high quality designer fabric, I don't necessarily know if it matters when it releases. And I see people get shamed for like using fabric that was released 2 or 3 years ago and it's not new and fresh. Guys, that's terrible. I don't like that at all. Pretty fabric deserves to be made into a quilt of your design at your time and at your choosing, right? So you guys get to decide what is the high-end fabric for you. Does it have to be the latest and greatest and just rolled off the bolt at Moda and into a project in the next week? No, absolutely not. And I think one of my favorite experiences is when I go into a quilt shop and I see a collection that I know is released 2 or 3 years ago, and it is older. I'll use the loose phrase older. It's not old, it's just older. But you're still able to use that with the collection that was just released today, that with a fabric that you found 10 years ago at that quilt shop in Alaska when you were on vacation. And I feel like all of that working together is what really makes this art form so beautiful, and not necessarily, I just got this fat quarter bundle and I have to make it into a quilt because the next release fat quarter bundle is arriving next month and I have to make that into a quilt. I don't like that treadmill. I don't like that at all. I feel like as long as we're making fabric that makes us happy, that inspires us, that is definitely, that's definitely where we want to be and where we want to play. I think the second end of this question is high-end quality fabric, not necessarily released, but high-end quality fabric versus something that's not of equal quality. And so my position on this is always use the fabric that you can afford to make. And so I don't feel like we should be exclusionary here and say the quilt police says you have to use designer quilt shop quality fabric that is fresh off the bolt. I see no problem with quilters going and finding things at a yard sale or finding things in a secondhand store. We have a location here in St. Louis called City Sewing Room. So they take donations, they take fabric from all sorts of different locations, places, and that is absolutely fantastic to be used to be made into a finished quilt, right? If you're making something that someone's going to love, is going to put good use behind, and is going to serve its primary purpose, which is to provide warmth, comfort, and protection to someone, then I don't necessarily know if it matters where your materials come from. And I say that as a quilt shop owner who has new, fresh fabric and releases and does designer fabric. But if you can afford a higher quality fabric, if you can afford a designer fabric, then definitely use it in your quilts and use it in your projects. I will disclose, you guys, when I was first starting to quilt and sew, back in the olden days, 30, 40 years ago, all of our fabric, like backing up my quilts all came from TJ Maxx. They were all twin sheets. They were, we had not a lot of money to be able to go and buy high-end fabric, but that didn't stop us from this art form and enjoying this process and learning skills and getting better as we went. So you guys, I think my advice is always, use what you can afford so that we can continue to quilt. If you can afford higher end designer fabric, then definitely do it. Here at Cotton Cuts, we try to make it approachable luxury, right? We try to provide you guys with designer goods, high end goods, but at a price point that's not going to completely crush your bank, because we want you to keep in this craft, right? We don't want you to be limited by my money and funds, especially in a world where these factors change all the time. And so I think that, on this high end fabric, use the fabric you can afford and continue to sew. To me, that's the end of it. That's really kind of the crux of it. Good morning, everybody. Good morning from Gainesville, Florida. Kay Stevens says her closet is full of old stuff that's going to be used before she buys new stuff. That is absolutely fine and fantastic, right? You bought this fabric. It does not need to be a museum. I've said this a couple times before. Your stash is not a quilt fabric museum. Please don't just keep it there to look at. It is fabric that is meant to be used into something that can be worn, loved, used as a blanket used as a quilt on a couch. Definitely use the fabric you have, but use it within the means that you have as well. Let's see here. Oh, Death Diablo. Okay, so Death Diablo. Hey, I love that username for you. Fantastic, Death Diablo. She says she likes to keep her eyes open for the remnants on our website. It makes more affordable. And I can say, wow, it's so pretty more than one time. Yes. So this is a secret about cotton cuts. And I've never talked about this, I think, in a public forum ever. Our remnants page on our website, there are people that tell me that it is a tab that is always open on their browser and they constantly refresh it. Like every day, every couple of days, they're refreshing it to see when we post new remnants, because our remnants are priced very affordably, you guys. These are things that for us are, shorter pieces. All of our remnants, we define remnants as more than 18 inches, but less than 1.5 yards. These are things that are at the end of the bolt that we can't necessarily die cut a shape out of, but we have tubs of these guys that we generate, and our team goes through and catalogs them and measures them, and they are on the website for not a lot of price. So every time you post a new batch, I swear, like we get orders that are like pages of people buying our remnants. This is one of those little things. Oh, here's a fantastic example. Okay, so this is a fabric. This is a remnant that's, I think, on the website right now. It better be on the website, if not in someone's cart. But here's a remnant. And so this guy is 31 inches long, right? We can't necessarily use 31 inches for a project. It's less than 1 yard, but it is something that, it's still valuable. And so our team photographs them, puts them on the website, and away you go. And I think it's like $4 or $5. Death Diablo, you're gonna have to confirm that for me. But you guys, our remnants is like the biggest hidden secret. If you guys are not on the remnants, please go check it out. Death Diablo, I love that you posted that, because that is a fantastic way that we try to keep high-end designer fabric approachable and affordable for everybody. So that way, you're helping us. These are bits and pieces. I don't throw away fabric. I hate throwing away fabric. I don't want to cut this down into smaller pieces, but it definitely has a better home than here. And so everyone wins when we do things like this. So thank you for pointing that out. Let's see here. Patch says she'd love a few PMQ in the future to resemble more of the old styles of quilting. Okay, that we can definitely take a note, Patch, for sure. Catherine Alan is, sorry, Catherine. Her son, 42 favorite quilt was a grandmother's fan made from his sister's dress leftovers, a mix of fabric types and an old blanket batting. I feel like the most treasured heirlooms are those where you're creative in sourcing your fabric, that you can have high quality fabric as a base, but then you're adding additional elements to it that give it that extra oomph, that don't necessarily require you to go and have a fat quarter bundle of the latest and greatest collection today. Let's see here. Oh, So Magic Fabric Magician says she loves our remnants, you guys. So I feel like that cat is out of the bag. If you are one of our remnants lovers, you are going to have to move faster, because the cat is out of the bag. The remnants are out there. I didn't know we would be talking about this today, but I'm so glad we did. Thank you guys. But if you're not familiar with the remnants page, definitely get on there, because it is a fantastic way to get those pieces. Like 31 inches, I'm sure it's probably $3 or $4. Someone will check me on that, but 31 inches, $3 or $4. Like, you guys, that is a great way to get fabric and just boost a little bit of stuff in your stash. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for the question, Patrice. I hope that's helpful to you. I know we went I think it would be $4.75. It's extremely affordable. Oh, Death Diablo, you're a dude. That's okay. No, so I love dude quilters, you guys. Like, I'm very careful. I want to be very transparent about this. I hate when people are like, hey, ladies, like, it's terrible. Like, you guys are all enthusiasts. You guys are all detectives. You guys are all, members. Like, I hate the like, hey, ladies, let's sew today. So, Death Diablo. Thank you so much for disclosing that you're a dude. I appreciate dude quilters. That's why I have the boy who sews with me, right? I've taught both of my children how to sew. To me, that's important. I don't care what your gender is. You can definitely quilt, sew, and create fantastic art together. And that's going to come back when I start talking about our New Orleans retreat. So sit tight for that for just a half a second. Let's see here. Autograph, signature. Patch, I am not following you, but let's see here. Got my sales, Mystery 50. Excited. Going to try 2 Bloom, but didn't have Dominic's. Okay, you guys, The conversation has left me. We'll get caught up. Yes, and men make beautiful things. Men that, like I said, when we went to Denver, we saw a whole exhibit at a quilt museum that was male quilters, and it was fantastic. It was inspiring. It was lovely, and the stories behind the quilts were just as meaningful as us as females that make quilts. And I think there's so much for everyone to contribute and appreciate in this art form that we've chosen to stay in. Oh my gosh, Patrice, who would have known we were zigging and zagging and talking about all sorts of different things this morning? All right.